my lilac long jacket. I know you remember. Every time I got in the elevator, every flute player would be like, Porter, you're looking fine today. And I was like, yes, that's Fifth Avenue. So listen, it's PC. You think, oh, I'm going to run around. I'm going to sweat. No. This is when the party starts.
Hi, I'm Amy Porter, and this is my podcast. Hi, guys. My mission is to show people how to empower themselves through music, business, and media. I try to see as clearly as possible how I can help. I showcase the music that I've played and the people I've met along the way. I'm a wife and a stepmom. You might know me as a professor, a performer, a producer, a publisher, a recording artist. I'm the founder of a couple of nonprofits. Welcome in to my PorterFlute Pod.
Welcome to PorterFlute Pod. It's Season 8, Episode 2, and you're going to take a stroll with me down memory lane as I recall the 27th Annual National Flute Association Convention in the ATL in 1999. It was an opportunity, one that I will never forget, and with me to share my memories is Carolyn Nussbaum. Thank you for being here.
It's so great.
It's such a full circle moment for me to be here. I had this script in 2012 written, and I wanted to put it into a book. I came for the Texas Flute Society, and now here I am here at your store. So I'd like to take a moment to tell everyone about your company. Is that okay?
Oh, that'd be lovely. Thanks.
You're welcome. Well, we're celebrating here at Carolyn Nussbaum's. She has supported artists and our entire flute community with heart and vision. And now we get to share this next chapter together. Her mission statement resonates deeply with me. It's unleash your flute's center and transform your musical world. I love that. So I encourage you all to discover with me right now, for a moment, the legacy of Carolyn Nussbaum Music Company. Founded in 1996 by visionary flutist and educator Carolyn Nussbaum, this company has become a trusted name among flutists for almost 30 years. From aspiring beginners to seasoned professionals, they've consistently resonated outwardly with a shared love for music. Here in the store and online, you can immerse yourself in a carefully curated collection of flutes, piccolos, head joints, and accessories. From the budding beginner to the accomplished professional, their instruments are tailored to every stage of your musical journey. Carolyn and her entire staff deeply appreciate the artistry and precision behind superior instruments. They collaborate with renowned flute makers globally. Their team is more than a collection of employees. It's a collective of educated flute players, and maybe with a trombonist thrown in just for fun. They have experienced musicians, dedicated educators, so whether it's choosing an instrument or refining your technique, they offer personalized insights and support for your musical journey. This store also has an extensive sheet music collection, from solo pieces to mixed ensembles, classic to contemporary. I've seen it. There's Adele and Taylor Swift in there, and then a bunch of Celtic music, and then there's everything I would want for my classical collection. They provide an array that satisfies all musical tastes. With constant updates to the repertoire and the website, you'll always find both the latest works and timeless classics. They also offer expert brand authorized repairs and a range of accessories, bags, which I love, and essentials, and everything from cleaning rods, cleaning kits, stands, and tuners. There's everything here. Carolyn Nussbaum Music Company is more than just a store. It's a sanctuary where music and community flourish. So dive into finding out more about this legacy known as Carolyn Nussbaum Music Company and see why this store is a cherished destination for flutists around the globe. We're here to talk about the NFA convention in 1999. First of all, will you be at this convention in Atlanta?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Your company will be there. When we come into the exhibit hall, we'll turn left a little bit, and then you'll be there a little bit on the right. Okay, you'll see.
On the right, booth 210.
thank you for being on this podcast with me, because I couldn't just do a podcast by myself and go, oh, I remember the ice sculptures. Oh, I remember the walkie-talkies. Oh, I remember being asked to be program chair. Like, I remember all these things, but I wanted to share them with a girlfriend.
Well, that's super great.
Okay.
I'm really excited
Let's
because when we were talking about this and you mentioned things about, can you believe it's in Atlanta again, finally, after all these years? And I thought about how in 2000, so the very next year, it was in Dallas. So 25 years ago, it was in Dallas. And then it was supposed to be in Dallas in 2020. And I was super excited because now it's in my hometown. Now I'm established. And here I am. And I'm not a super big planner ahead. And for 2020 NFA, I was like, I'm going to plan ahead. So starting in January, I was already planning and I had all these things set up. And then, as we all know, it didn't happen because we decided to, be locked down and not do stuff and, hopefully just stay alive. So it didn't happen. And it still hasn't happened in Dallas. So I don't know what it's going to be like to recreate something that for me was just down the street 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And you have all these memories from Atlanta when you were in the symphony and you were on the board and the chair.
Yeah.
For all of that. And you kind of went down a little bit of memory lane, and there were things that you started to talk about. So I'm excited to be here to hear about various things. If the ice sculptures, you just mentioned ice sculptures. I'm like, what are you talking about? Ice sculptures. Kind of want to know about that because all I picture of ice sculptures is like being on a cruise, the midnight buffet, and there's an ice sculpture. So what could you possibly be talking about NFA and ice sculptures? Girl.
Right. So my car veered off the road, not in a bad way. It was incredible. I put my Mac, and at the time the Mac was pretty much the size of the bookshelf, right? But I had the cool Mac. It was like lime green, and it had handles, and so you could unplug the hard drive. The hard drive was so heavy, I had to kind of negotiate it, and I put it in the back seat on the floor. So we're taking the hard drive to the Hyatt. Then we get all my suitcases in, we get the flutes, we get everything in, and my car just ended up at Saks Fifth Avenue.
If you're going to do it right.
Okay, so I valet parked my car.
With your Mac. So your Mac?
My Mac's in the
your
back.
Apple computer's just hanging out.
I said, take care of my car, and I walked in and I opened up a Saks Fifth Avenue charge account. I was approved for like $800 and I spent $700 on all new clothes. Some had to be hemmed. They were running around. I was like, make it work. I had this, if y'all remember my lilac long jacket, I know you remember. Every time I got in the elevator, every flute player would be like, Porter, you're looking fine today. And I was like, yes, Saks Fifth Avenue. So listen, it's PC. You think, oh, I'm going to run around. I'm going to sweat. No. This is when the party starts. Right? So let's go back from when my car veered off and I looked good, right? Let's back up about a year and a half.
Okay. So 97.
I got the call in 97, exactly. Eric Hoover was president.
Oh, yeah.
Eric Hoover taught me at Brevard. And Madeline Newman, bless her heart, remember her? Mm-hmm. Ran our lives. Convention people, ran our lives. Madeline Newman and Eric Hoover asked me to come to the Hyatt and the revolving restaurant at the top. So I was like, sure, I'll help. I'll definitely help. I remember being in the cocktail lounge with Eric and we're ordering drinks. And I said, would you like my help in being local program chair? And he said, no, actually, we're thinking we'd like you to be PC. What do you think? You'd be the youngest PC ever. And that didn't impress me. That made me more scared, right? He said, but you live here and you know the flutists and you know the worldwide community. By this time, I had won Kobe. I had sat in the Atlanta Symphony. I had been out there performing concerti. And so I was kind of excited to take that role on. And I asked him, hey, Eric, how is it for you? And he said, you plan for a year and a half and then you let go. Those 4 days become your celebration. He said it's the best feeling in the world.
So you're like early 30s at this time?
Yes.
Wow. That's a lot.
I'm 33 or so. Michigan had not been solidified quite yet as a gig. By the way, everyone, when things go down in your life, they all happen at once. So you could go through devastating loss and incredible gains all in the same week, day, month, doesn't matter. It all tends to happen, right? When it rains, it pours. So I agree to be program chair, but I realize we have no flute club.
There was no Atlanta Flute Club at the time?
No.
There weren't a lot of flute clubs back then. Like when Texas was a flute club, when Texas at that time, we would draw in 1,500, 2,000 people on average because people would drive in. Now there's a flute club in almost every university. So it's...
Thank goodness. Well, I would go to the National Flute Association convention and go to Grace Petrie's talks about how to start a flute club because I started getting a little nervous. So I did that. I took a lot of notes. I went back to Atlanta. The Atlanta Flute Club began in 1997 with a wonderful group of people. I began tugging on coattails, and I needed people to know that the convention is coming, and we really, really, really need a flute club. So thanks to Melody Kramer Fuller and Carl Hall, Kathy Farmer, Christina Smith, Paul Britton, Tony Watson, a bunch of people getting together, we found a woman named Anna Ayers Smith. Anna Smith had just moved to Atlanta. In no way could I be president, right, of the Atlanta Flute Club and PC. So we said, Anna, you used to work for the Minnesota Flute Club. And she said, yes. And I said, well, listen, we need you. And she said, okay. So we gathered in the Atlanta area on a fateful night in 1997, and we elected Anna Ayers Smith president, Kathy Farmer recording secretary, Natalie Wilson Faulkner was correspondence secretary, and Angela Allen was treasurer. My name was not, there except for a founding member, and I ran off and just did my convention. So I asked everyone at the meeting on the way out the door, I said, could someone go to Kinko's and please order a banner that says, Atlanta Flute Club welcomes the world? Because I can see things, I just can't always mobilize and get it done. So I needed someone to pretend that we were huge, right? We had 10 members, but no, we were welcoming thousands. And it was such a joy, Carolyn, to walk into Hyatt and have that banner hanging over the balcony saying, the Atlanta Flute Club welcomes the world with our logo. I laughed so hard. We were just an idea. But the first flute fair was held in 1998. I was the featured masterclass performer. We had Kathy Farmer conducting flute choir. We had local exhibitors. We had the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra Flute Gala. We had a newsletter that year. It was just this very provincial, lovely, small Atlanta Flute Club because we needed it. So there we have the founding of the Atlanta Flute Club. That's a memory I'll never forget. And thank you to all who keep it alive today.
For a lot of us exhibitors, the NFA shows all run together. They'll be like, oh, do you remember in such and such a city when this happened? And we're going to be like, we call it Anywhere USA because we're in an exhibit hall and that's all we pretty much know. And then we'll go out, maybe if we're not exhausted, we'll go to a gala concert or go to a dinner. It's a lot of work as an exhibitor, so we don't usually get out of the hall because we're there from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day. So it could be Anywhere USA is kind of what we joke about within the exhibitors. We kind of say a lot of that. So to hear your experience, as exhibitors, we have our own funny memories.
Yes.
I would love to hear about your funniest memories as PC of this whole event because that's a lot.
It is, and you're only as good as your assistant. Frankie Kavanaugh was in Christina's life as her adult student. And when I found out about him, that he was an executive assistant to 5 senior partners at Deloitte,
oh, wow.
I said, excuse me, you're a flute player, you're organized. My name's Amy. Would you please be my assistant? It comes with $1,000. I don't get paid, but you get paid. He said, okay. So Frankie's first memory of me is walking up the driveway in my Marietta house, and I'm literally covered in water from fighting with the sprinkler in my yard. And he gets out of the car and he literally says, I never thought I'd meet you looking like this. Like I was in shorts full of mud. This sprinkler would not unravel its twisty thing. And I was just like, hi, Frankie, I'm Amy. We got work to do. Let me put the sprinkler down. We proceeded to put on my disco. It was 70s disco back then. It was having a revival in the 90s, so we were all about it. Crank that music. Get going with our dry erase boards. So dry erase boards, fax machines, no email, phone calls, real life phone calls, and meetings once a week in the basement. So the filing cabinets started to become full with the paper submissions, right? You submitted paper. You submitted recordings, and so
were
I
they
had
on cassette?
They were on CD and
CD,
cassette.
yeah.
I remember driving to an Atlanta Symphony gig and having to listen to a lot of different recordings. And the number one rule as a PC is never believe what anyone says about a piece. This is the greatest piece ever written. Nope. Never believe it. You must listen to it yourself. It's the number one rule of a PC. Don't take somebody's word for it. Don't take somebody's word for the timing of it, the dates of it. Like literally, you have to know every piece you're programming intimately and know if it works with the rest of your show. So I would drive down, and I remember being so moved by the submissions of the community of the National Flute Association. I literally called Amy Lykar on the phone. She's like, excuse me, why are you calling me? I said, you are a beautiful player. Please play at this convention what you just played. I think she dropped the phone. To this day, she'll tell you she dropped the phone, because if you know me well enough, you know I'm very moved by you. I mean, that's your job. Move my soul, please, as a musician. And when you do, I'll call you and say thank you. So Amy Lykar was invited that way. Joshua Smith was invited that way. I invited Wib. I invited Alain Marion from my days of being a student. And I invited Peter Lucas Graf from my days in Salzburg. One of my most vivid memories, I must say, was sad. It was the convention before mine. I had been there. It was Phoenix. I didn't realize that the light in the hotel phone would be blinking 24/7 because I was PC the next year. No idea. I had to play concerts. What do you mean? I have to be PC now? Yeah, I had to be PC. So I got a message when I dialed into my answering machine on the flight out of Phoenix from Frida Brannon, congratulating me on the best conference in 27 years, and it had been the 27th, and then telling me that, unfortunately, Alain Marion had passed. He had died of a broken heart. His grandson had drowned in the pool, and I got a fax when I got back from Phoenix, this long. I still have it today. It's yellow by now, of Alain Marion pouring his heart out to me. Amy, I'm so sorry I cannot come. I have my life has ended. I have gone from light to darkness. This letter to me is so sad. And he died a few months later of a broken heart. I'm convinced. I'm sure there were other extenuating factors, but it was so sad. So we invited Jean-Michel Tanguy. And he came and knew he was not a replacement, but he was definitely someone who understood my love for Alain Marion and his way of playing. So I appreciated that. One thing I was very, very aware of was global community. And so the Atlanta Flute Club welcomes the world. That was my theme. Education, inspiration, celebration. 3 words that I felt needed to be the cornerstone of my convention. Inspiration, education, celebration. So we had a world gel. I think when you have a light here and then you put a gel of it. The world gel was a huge deal for me, Carolyn. Like just a gel. It cost a lot of money. Was it going to work? But there was the world on the wall I wanted it just on the wall. We began with a Bansuri flutist from India. She needed her yogurt. She needed her Indian community. She needed to sit on the floor, and she needed the proper rug.
Oh, wow.
We got her that rug. It started. The lights came up. Opening night. Oh, that was beautiful. It's all working, right? It was just a tremendous thing. I told you I asked Joshua Smith, right?
Yes.
He played the Mozart G major. He was just brilliant. I've always admired his playing. And it's clean, it's elegant, it's seamless. So he played, Robert Dick premiered his concerto for all flutes, right?
Oh, yeah.
Carl Hall premiered the Martin Amlin Piccolo Concerto. And then Reinecke, played by Webb, with what I call the backwards G sharp. So for those of you who don't remember, this was G natural and that was G sharp until it was switched.
We call it open G sharp, but we can call it backwards G sharp for you. It's all good.
Right. So that was wonderful, a wonderful, wonderful memory. I have to say that since there was no internet, we had walkie-talkies. And so growing up in the 70s, we had One Atom 12. We had these, Emergency, the show, right? So everybody was like on these walkie-talkies.
So, 10-4, good buddy.
10-4, right. So that's what we would do. I would say 10 minutes, and everybody, I had at least 5 people or 6 people on walkie-talkies stationed at the major rooms. Because if it's one thing I can't stand, it's an NFA event starting late and then messing up the rest of the convention. And that was another golden rule. So the first golden rule, don't trust anybody when it comes to programming music. And number 2, you must start your events on time. So it was like 10 minutes, 5 minutes. This Virgo had a 2-minute call, a 30-second call, and then doors closed. And the ushers were like, you will not come in, right? Have you been?
This sounds like life lessons you're giving to the future people of this job.
Well,
maybe we should change the name of the podcast. Here are lessons I've learned.
Exactly. Frankie did write a book. And in fact, I do think that we leave the next generation this information, which I'm sorry, I don't think anybody takes. Everything changes so fast. It's not that no one cares.
Well, AI can't teach this.
No, AI can't teach this. So we began everything with walkie-talkies. When I did go down to the exhibit hall, you all were having a time of it. There were stolen instruments.
Oh, yes.
2. We learned that year that you cannot have an escalator going down and an escalator going up in the same exhibit hall. Right? On the same side. You can't have that. Because people were going down, picking up a flute, and coming right back up. And the flute was gone. So you had to go down now, right? There's a guard now. And then to get out of the exhibit hall, I'm pretty sure you have to find a different escalator. At least that's what I'm finding out in operations. Yeah.
Every hall is so different. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we're in a ballroom. Sometimes we're actually in an exhibit hall where we have high ceilings. And sometimes we're in a parking garage like San Diego. That was terrible.
Wow.
They converted a parking garage. I was on the ramp where the cars... So my piccolos would roll off the table. So we had to kind of rig the table to make it level, even though the ground wasn't level.
My goodness.
And then people would trip, and fried rice. This is a whole nother podcast we'll talk about another time. But it's, yeah.
And you're smelling the oil of the garage, right?
So we had, the oil was seeping up through the rolled out carpet that they rolled in this year in San Diego. It was crazy.
No expense.
But no. Not for the exhibitors, where he's like literally in the basement.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Atlanta was my second convention.
Yeah, talk about that. So we probably did not meet. We passed.
Yeah, we passed two ships passing in the night.
Yeah,
I was still really, a newbie and one of the only women.
If I'm in my early 30s, you're in your late 20s.
Yeah.
Can we go into the fees for a second? There's a convention fee for the NFA, but then there's like exhibiting fees, there's accepting your boxes fees at the loading dock, there's internet fees, there's fees if you want another inch. Can you go into that for a second? It's a whole other universe.
It's a whole other universe. Yeah, so the cost to get, before we even walk in the door,
yeah,
we have to negotiate Well, you have to take a couple months to get all your merchandise ordered, sometimes 6 months in advance. We have to start ordering for the convention. We have to start thinking about marketing and advertising. We have to think about our layout, how many tables we rent the tables. Sometimes we rent the tables, sometimes we bring our own tables. Sometimes we have to bring our own flooring. Sometimes the room is carpeted. We have to think of all those expenses. Then we have to get our merchandise there. I take 80, 90 boxes of sheet music. I'm still a small store.
Okay.
Right? Relatively speaking. So when I'm at that convention, I look like I'm this huge store because we have a lot of specialty stuff. And I've, over the years, worked with a lot of vendors so that I get things in. They want to have their product in my booth, which makes me feel good because they trust me with their product. And I hope my goal is to represent them well. But they also know I'm kind of known as very high maintenance in the industry. The vendors love me and hate me at the same time because if the flutes come in and they're not perfect, I just send them back. So I'm kind of high maintenance, but that's another thing.
That is not high maintenance. That's high standards. Could we just keep the standards high?
Yes. Okay. So I have very high standards.
Yes.
But with that, so to get in there, and then because I take up a lot of square footage and I bring a lot of merchandise, they charge you by the pound to bring your merchandise in the door and take it out of the door. So just the cost to get my stuff in, we hope to break even.
Yeah.
And everybody thinks, oh, well, I just bought, a $3,000 flute. She just made $3,000. It cost me money for that flute that you're buying. I don't make $3,000. And I have to pay for the shopping bag. I have to pay the credit card processing fee. I have to pay the employee who packaged that flute to get here. I pay the employee to help you with it. So every bit of it it's a package thing. So it's a lot as an exhibitor to come into that hall. I want to be there. It's not just about selling product. It's about offering products that you can't just go down the street and get. You can't just go down the street and get, a piece of music that we ordered from Japan. They're not going to have that at your general music store. There's only one or two of us that might have it in the country. And you want that edition of that piece written by so-and-so in some tiny little town outside of Osaka. So we try to get that. And that's what we offer here. What I like to offer to everybody is to be able to offer that. And we go to the NFA because a lot of times, even with the internet, you want to touch and feel. You want to pick up that piece of music. You want to look at it. Hearing it on the internet or just looking at a little bit of it, you want to be able to touch and feel the whole thing. There's still that concept of wanting to be able to see it and experience it. We still want to walk into a store sometimes. We don't want to just sit at home all day, every day and have everything delivered to us. Eventually that gets old.
Yes.
So human interaction is an important thing. So to be able to bring all of this stuff, all of this merchandise, all of these things to touch and feel and look at and wonder if you want or you didn't even know you wanted it or needed it or it's going to make your life better. I want to be able to bring that to the flute community. And so that's what we do. So we have to negotiate all of this stuff prior to even months before convention starts so that we can offer that. And it's not about walking out making $1 gajillion, but it would be nice to break even. I mean, it'd be nice to make a little bit as well. I mean, we don't do everything for our health, right? We want to be able to be healthy, and to be healthy, we have, to make a living. So we want to be able to supply and give back to the community, the flute community, give them access to all of this stuff.
Well, you represent such a large part of the United States, really.
Thanks. So this was Phoenix was my first convention by myself. I'd worked for a couple other companies prior to, and then Phoenix was my first, and Atlanta
mine was your second.
Was my second all by myself.
And we went whoop on the escalator.
Yeah. So back to that.
So I just want to talk about flute choirs for a minute, because the flute choirs needed their whole wing, and I loved the hotel because the flute choirs got their own wing, and they said, collectively, the flute choir community said, thank you, Amy, because we are a group that needs space. We need our music stands. We need our areas. We ebb and we flow with so many people, and having an event way over here and then an event where we have to walk way over here is no fun for flute choirs, right? They come with at least 10 people and a conductor. So
And a contrabass flute.
exactly, a lot of stuff. And can I just say for the world what no one's saying? If it were for the flute choirs, we wouldn't have a big NFA, right? Don't go off and start the National Flute Choir community because we would be lost. So it's the flute choir community we really need. They're amazing. They're such a great contributor to the National Flute Association. So my advice for future program chairs would be, please give them their own galaxy.
Near the exhibit hall.
Near
so they don't
the
have to walk really far.
Exactly.
That is one thing we get a lot is, I couldn't make it down to the exhibit hall because it was 20 minutes to get to the exhibit hall, but the event I want to go to was back to back. So it'd be great if they could put the exhibit hall centered and so people can pass the ebb and flow through it. That'd be lovely. There's my little sneak that one in there.
2 words, Caesar's Palace. But I digress. Really, I digress.
I am so curious. Ice sculptures, go.
One day, it was a Sunday at 5:30 because you wake up at 4:30 in the morning and you do all your makeup and everything and you look fabulous by 5:30 a.m. The elevator opened and there in the lobby was this ice sculpture. And if you've ever seen a fresh one, they have mist coming off. And I've never been so impressed, right? Who donated ice sculptures to my convention? Right? At this point, I'm so centered on me and my convention and all the rooms and the timing with my walkie-talkies and all the exhibitors are happy and it's Sunday and we are ready to go. And I start seeing nuns. And then I start seeing priests. And so I sashay over to the front desk and I said, may I speak to my manager? Because they know me by this point. And they said, we can't find her right now. And I said, could you tell me about the nuns? And they said, this is a convention of Estonian nuns. It's the Estonian Nun Convention.
What is an Estonian nun?
Nuns from Estonia.
Okay.
That's all they would tell me. They brought in their ice sculptures. They were moving in on my territory. And it turns out Sunday was double booked with the Convention of Estonian Nuns. Welcome to my last day of the NFA convention. I immediately went into takeover mode. You are not taking my ballrooms. Oh yes, we need that ballroom. You are not taking my flute and band concerto ballroom. My friend Christina is playing concerto, or I don't know, she was playing a recital. Something Christina, my dearest, sweetest flute sister, was doing something and you will not take her ballroom away. So the other problem was the NFA Young Artists was going to have finals, right? It was Sunday. You're not taking half my ballroom away. So Frankie and I, at 6 a.m., sat in chairs, pulled over these banquet chairs, and sat in front of the door like this, like bouncers. They couldn't find my manager. You're not taking my ballroom. I guess my Philly, New York girl took over, right? And Frankie's like, okay, what are we doing? I said, I don't know. Well, right at that moment, a chef in a very, very tall chef's hat with his white on, you could tell he was head chef. And he's beaming and happy and friendly, checking on his hotel. And he comes up to us, makes a little, I'll never forget, he's walking and he's coming towards us. And I'm like, hello, breakfast. He says, hello, what's happening? And I said, the Estonian nuns are trying to take my ballroom from me. And I'm at the flute convention. And he said the magic words, are you hungry? And I said, yes. And he said, would y'all like some eggs Benedict? And I said, yes, sir. He said, I'll be right back. Because there happened to be like a banquet table. In hotels, there's stuff everywhere. You can find just a table if you need it. Just look in a corner. You'll find a table. You'll find a chair. Okay, so there's a table with a linen tablecloth. I love that. So we pulled that over and we sat. And the chef brought us our eggs Benedict. And Frankie's just like, this is the craziest thing in the world. And I was like, it's not over, Frankie. Well, Carolyn, this is a deep personal story, but in a nutshell, I'd been going through the beautiful process of joining the Episcopal Church. I had been on this journey, and I had just been baptized at age 32. So here I was, 33, and it was all fresh and new to me, and I was seeing priests running around. So I said, Frankie, I'll be right back. And I saw this priest, and he was walking in front of us, and he was getting on the escalator, so I got behind him. And I was in panic mode. 6:30 in the morning, I said, excuse me, Father, I have to just tell you something right now, that I'm double booked with your convention. I'm the manager of this convention, and I'm freaking out a little bit right now. And to tell you the truth, and we're almost at the bottom, I said, to tell you the truth, I really could use a blessing right now. And it's Sunday morning. We land at the bottom. He doesn't miss a beat. You got to love a priest. He turns around, he says, and he crosses me on the forehead, and I said, thank you so much. And he said, be in peace. And I turned, and as I said, the U-turn escalator happened, right? So I made the U-turn. I'm on my way up, and Frankie is nodding his head like this. He's like, you are the craziest woman I've ever met. What on earth did you do to that priest? I said, Frankie, I got a blessing. I just don't know what else to do. When you have no other options, you just got to turn it over. So I turned it over. It turned out to work. You know that phrase, when you have plans, God laughs? Yeah, that's the whole thing, the whole day. Half the ballroom, you saw them mid-concert coming out and trying to close the door. It was a fight with this convention the entire day. The ending of the whole convention, I call Wib and the Venezuelans. The Venezuelan flute choir was on tour that year, and Wib was going around with them. William Bennett loved the Venezuelan flute choir. So I put them together as a rock band kind of thing, and the whole thing was Wib and the Venezuelans. For the jazz artists, I had some dear friends. Nestor Torres, I made absolutely play a party that night. We served alcohol. We had no chairs. Guys, the jazz concerts don't need chairs. What, are we sitting there like this? Like, we need high top tables. We need some, alcohol. But did you know, fun fact, that we don't drink at the NFA? They hate us because we don't spend money on alcohol. We're not doctors and lawyers. So our alcohol bill is so low that they really don't want to go there with us. So the PC has to negotiate with the administration how much alcohol you think you're going to sell. It's just bizarre. So anyway, we had alcohol at this one with Nestor. We danced. People said, I have not salsa'd like that in my life. And then the other jazz night was I put it up in the rotating restaurant, Nelson Rangel. Could you think of a better, soft jazz, flute? There it is, looking out over Atlanta. So that was such a beautiful, those were beautiful moments for me. But the final closing with Wib and the final closing, let's see, I had the Army Field Band. I had just beautiful, beautiful groups. My friends in the Atlanta Symphony played. It was incredible. And the closing speech, of course, I had to give, and I did not mention the nun convention, but the closing speech was very meaningful for me. And people don't realize that the closing speeches are like, yeah, let's have the PC up, and the PC is absolutely drained, and they do not get the credit that they deserve of the 2 years that they just spent, and the next year spent getting over it. But I must share that. I would do it again. Take care of all the people that are in this convention operations, because it's a labor of love, not a labor of must, not a labor of I have to. It's a labor of I want to. I want to fight the nun convention for my room because I want my girlfriend to get her beautiful concert in, that she's going to wow everybody with. That was my whole purpose of that. That's my ice sculpture story.
To do what you did, and for everybody else who does that job every year, it has to come from a place of love, because there's no other reward. Mm-hmm. The reward is the success of it, the journey, mm-hmm. right? What you learn from it, the people you meet, the relationships you create as you go through those 2 years that sound somewhat excruciating.
It's not that bad. It's really not that bad. Then these days, I'm sure it's not that bad. I think these days it might have more of an edge of of communication and how you want to respond to people's personalities. Because when there are faxes and phone calls, there are not so many misunderstandings, right? No emojis.
Oh, yeah.
It was just honest, I'm sorry you're not accepted this year. There's no political issues, just it doesn't match with my program. That's kind of the way we were. So hopefully there's no misunderstandings. And I would just say to the future program chairs, go for it. Take us into the future. Don't just think that video is new. Like, I'm teaching my students to play with video. No. Teach them to play with VR. Let's have some VR concerts. I'm in. I've already done it. Let's do it. Let's go with some touchless teaching options for our lectures. Let's go for more flute choir interaction where people can just get up and sight read with the flute choir if they've never played in a flute choir. So I think I was around when they started the open master classes. Do they still have that? I don't know. You're an exhibitor, right?
I
You wouldn't know. But
Mm-hmm.
they have these master classes where you can just show up and sit in the front row and then say, I want to play.
Oh.
Yeah. I think we do that at the local level, not so much at the national level. They can't
What
do
would
that.
be really great with all these suggestions you have is if we created a roundtable and discussed how do we take conventions, NFA, and flute festivals to the 21st, 22nd century, because every time I go to these various conventions, about 15, 16 a year, the attendance is getting less and less. The marketing of them by each society is getting less and less. So, and I don't have the answers. I haven't figured it out yet, but I would love to sit at a round table and come up with ideas of how to revitalize this. Because what we've been doing, I think, is starting to not work. We're not allowed to teach our students by either pushing on their back or trying to show them how to breathe and show them things. I grew up with my teacher tapping on a pencil on my shoulder.
Yes.
Well, that's not allowed.
Right.
She'd get fired.
Yeah, Sam Barron used to go, be flat.
Yeah, I mean...
But this is just don't invade my space kind of thing.
So that's just one example
concept
of many
Yeah.
that we could bring to the future, and we need to make the future now. So we need to figure out, and I'm willing to be involved in it. I'm not willing to run it, but I'm willing to be a chair at the round table and throw out ideas and
Let's
come up
do
with
it.
something great to move forward so that we don't keep trying to figure it out. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I just want to make the wheel better.
Necessity is the mother of invention.
Hence, another podcast right there just happened.
My audience knows all about my breathing buddy, and my audience knows all about me, but they don't know all about you. So I just want to thank you so much for being in my podcast, in my pod today.
Oh. Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for coming all the way down to Texas just before it gets really hot and enjoying a little bit of our nice weather and maybe a tornado thrown in here or there, because
Oh my gosh, a tornado.
that kind of happened while you were here. And hanging out in my shop because we love it here. It's family here.
It is.
And now you're part of our family.
I have
and
to
part of our
say,
community.
unscripted, I have to say the staff culture is beyond. It's just happy. It's organized here. It's lovely. It's there's light and happiness. So it's just incredible. So I appreciate your stroll down memory lane with me. And I will see you at the NFA convention. I'm not presenting, but I am going to be book signing with
At my booth.
Yes, at your booth, and maybe for Haynes, and maybe for Flutistry, and probably Flute World as well. I'll hit all my friends that I love in the exhibit world. And I have to tell you that I do, whenever I'm a guest, here's my last tip. When I'm a guest at a flute club, I walk straight to the exhibit hall, and I walk from table to table, and I say, hi, everybody, how are you? And they look up and they're like, aren't you supposed to be the guest? Yes, I'm the guest. And if it weren't for you, I wouldn't be here. If it weren't for the exhibitors, my guest artist fee couldn't be paid. The flute little kid from nowhere, Texas, would not get a superior instrument, right? At these flute festivals, it's a microcosm of the National Flute Association. And I'll end with this. Everybody plays the flute, right? We learned that today.
Yeah.
You said, Amy, meet my girlfriend. She does this, but Oh, I used to play the flute, right? Hey, meet my friend the lawyer. They used to play the flute. One of my dearest students has a degree in flute and Spanish, and now she's a high-powered attorney. So I think it's just really important that our flute community sticks together, no matter what you play, what brand you play, what level you are. We're all just one big family of, 8,000 of us. So see you all. Not 8,000 of you, I'm sure, but I'll see at least 4,000. What do you think? Are we going to go for 4,000 in Atlanta? 4,000. I'll see you 4,000 people in Atlanta. Welcome to PorterFlute Pod, Carolyn. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much, Amy.
Thanks for being in PorterFlute Pod. I'm so grateful for you.